Okay. Okay, so very good evening, everyone, and welcome to our session today with our very own Nitin Goyal, right? So before we get into the session and the conversation around the session, and before I also spend a little time introducing Nitin, because let's not assume everybody knows him here, although he's been a very popular member of the chapter. So I'll just do run through a few quick housekeeping things that we need to get out of the way. So this session offers you 1.5 CCU, of which 0.5 is resource development and 1 is core competency. So you can use that for your credentialing or credential renewal with ICF. However, to get the CCU, you will need to attend the entire session, right up to the, it's a 90-minute session today. Please ensure from, the housekeeping thing again, that your display name that shows up on your name right now is exactly as you would like to come on your CCU certificate. It does save all of us a lot of admin work if the name is spelled or, appears correctly. So if you want your first name, last name in a certain sequence or, capitals, all of that, please make sure that you've got it exactly as you'd like it on your CCU certificate. Also, we'd like to keep this as an interactive session, so preferably keep your video on and please do participate, right? And with that, let me introduce our wonderful guest for today. And of course, like I said, Nitin is no stranger to ICF Bengaluru. He's been a very, very active member. He was on our MC for 4 years in various roles. He's been director learning, director membership, director social impact. He was also part-time treasurer. And he was also the chair of our first ever ICF India Conclave. Nitin is a leadership and team coach with about 25 years of corporate business experience in leadership roles. And post his corporate stint, he has over 7 years of experience in designing and delivering coaching solutions to the private as well as public sector. Now, over the years, he's also developed a niche for one-to-many coaching, and he has coached many leadership and executive teams. He is currently the co-founder of SCI, Systemic Coaching International, and is also a facilitator for their whole systems coaching program, which is certified by ICF as an ACTC accredited course. He's a PCC from ICF and an accredited team coach practitioner from EMCC. So with that, welcome Nitin, and over to you.
Thank you, everyone. And as always, I'm honored to be part of this community and present what I'm about to present. All of us are experts in our own areas, I guess, and our expertise overlap. So please do share, express what you have in mind, while we go through things. The session has some slides which are related to knowledge, but there are a lot of activities which are planned. And as the advertisement talk about, the session is based on a case that me and Saras, we together worked on. So Saras has been, partnered in this crime with me. So if anything goes wrong, please don't blame me alone. With that, let me share. Okay. Rachel, you need to open the sharing.
Okay, hang on. I'll make you co-host.
So there are many areas where I will be requesting you to participate in chat box. May I request Rachel to keep a tab on the chat box, and whatever comes in, if there are things important, please bring that out now.
Sure.
Please feel free to ask questions. Although we have in the end, there is a Q&A section that I've kept. But if you have any pressing questions, feel free to ask that. Okay, with that. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, fantastic.
I just want to interrupt Nitin 1 moment. So I'm seeing a few bots in the room. There are a couple of AI bots that are there in the room. I'm assuming some of them are linked to your logins. I think Himani, yours was there, and I just got a request for another one. We do not allow bots in the session. So kindly request all of you who have bots, I assume automatically joining in, kindly remove those from the session. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm very sorry, but I don't know how to remove it. I mean, I know that it's there, and I'm
Okay,
trying
I'll remove it. No
to
worries.
tell
I'll
me how
remove
to remove it. Please remove it.
I'll remove it.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay. And my slide is not. Okay. So the agenda is, as we talked about, multi-stakeholder agreements, the case in discussion, sensing, whole systems approach, voice of system, benefits of using voice of system, and what it is. We'll talk about that. But my objective of today's session would be to help these all of us go a little beyond team coaching as we talk about, and think as a whole systems, and see the difference between these two, and how it may benefit you when you start working with your clients. With that, my first question: what would add value to me and my stakeholder from today's session? Please put that in a chat box. And I'm going to stop sharing for a minute so that I can see what is being put in the chat box. Please make it practical. Okay. Ajit says, actually, that's precisely the question that I have. Okay, Ajit, I was looking for an answer from you, and you're asking that question back. Typical coach behavior. A taste of whole system in the context. I think that will be there. Sharing real life example cases. What kind of challenges this technique can be applied to? Okay. Hold on to that question, Anirudh, and maybe we'll circle back once we have gone through the PPT and look at it again.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing how to link the team issues with the whole systems. Okay. Team itself can be considered as a whole system, by the way, in case you choose to. So every system would have a boundary, and the system that you work with is defined by the boundaries that. To be special coach, adding value to all. It would be interesting to understand what that special means, for instance. Difference between the whole systems and the team. Okay. I don't think that will be directly answered, but I think some inferences can be made. Okay, so we will see how it how it evolves, and if you are able to add value to yourself and your stakeholders after the session. And I'm going to share this link with you. Wait a minute. In the chat box, I would like you to go to this and answer this question: who and what do we agree to during multi-stakeholder agreements in coaching teams? And here is the link. So I've posted the link, and I'm going to stop share. Please use the sticky notes And I'm going to share my Jamboard. Success criteria, then KPIs with the leader to the whole team. How they are going to work, so norms, common team goal, with all stakeholders. So all stakeholders is very generic, you know, if you could identify who are those stakeholders that you typically work with when you are working with teams, it would be good. And what kind of contracts would you have with these stakeholders? Working agreements with all the relevant team members, okay? Approach, process, and conduct with each other, okay? Agree to the common, urgent, important team challenges they deal with, and other agreement clauses. Internal and external stakeholder. So it'll be interesting to know what kind of agreements would you have with these external stakeholders. Trust, fairness, and earnestness. Clarifying the coach role and also the various roles in the system, okay? Common goals and objectives, how will the team measure these? Yeah, how will the team measure these is the tricky one. Interesting. So let me stop share. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in the ICF coaching competencies on the screen. and see what you have covered and what is left. Are there things? So the things that you have written are the things which are there top in your head all the time, most of the time. What is not there? What do we usually miss if you look at these competencies? And look at the individual competencies also in the context of team. You can open your mic and speak, if you felt what has been missed. I think one of the things that I did not say is explain what team coaching is and is not, including how it differs from the team developmental. Another thing I saw, which did not come up so far in the Jamboard, was partner with the team leader to determine how the ownership of coaching process will be shared among the coach, leader, and team. And I would want to highlight that, specifically that one, because if that discussion and dialogue is not happening from the beginning, chances are that that the transfer of the coaching will not happen. Yes, Ajit.
Yeah, so one of the thing I wanted to ask is this, does it blur lines between team building and team coaching? Are there certain prerequisites or certain base that is expected that a team is on a common ground, same page, etc.? Like, what we say during any team, there are 4 stages: forming, storming, norming, performing, etc., right? We call that way. So are there certain expectations that team is at a certain level before they get into the coaching, team coaching, and it does not become a facilitation exercise of team building than coaching?
Very interesting question, Ajit. Is there a minimum criteria to start the team coaching? I think the willingness is definitely one major criteria. Apart from that, I think it is important to understand where a team is, and more than you understanding, let the team see where they are, and see if they are ready for this kind of intervention or not. Obviously, clarifying what team coaching will do and what it will not do. So team would be able to assess themselves where they are, and if they are ready for this kind of intervention, that would explain whether you would want to get into this kind of a engagement or not. Does that answer your question, Ajit?
Okay.
So
so is there a way to do that, like give them a self-assessment or a questionnaire kind of thing to say, fill up these questions, for example, and then we could determine that.
So hold on to that thought. We will discuss that in the upcoming slides.
Yeah. So I just want to add one thing there, Ajit, to your point. See, the whole intention of team coaching versus team building, the intentions of the two modalities are different, right? So team building is more about getting people to like each other, or get along with each other, get to know each other, maybe even. Versus team coaching is specifically focused on team's performance. So it's always about goals and performance when we talk about team coaching. Now, in my experience, sometimes you might want to lead and do a bit of, team building, but you don't need to. You could, but you don't need to, is my experience.
Okay. So, Rachel, what I understand you saying is, if I look at from these 4 stages, forming, storming is what is typically done, addressed during the team building or team facilitation program, and norming, performing is addressed during the coaching program.
I would say storming is also team coaching. The only thing that I think team building does is, see, I'll tell you what, people don't necessarily need to like each other to be able to work well with each other. Team building actually focuses on getting to know each other. And I think there is an underlying intention of liking each other. But again, in my experience, and Nathan, you can say how it's been for you. But I've worked with teams where you don't necessarily, if you haven't seen the movie Chak De, watch that, right? It's
Yeah,
You
yeah, I
don't
have.
necessarily need to like and agree with everything. You just need to be able to play well together. So
Yeah.
I think I think the only thing I would respond to is that team building exercise is also done from various aspects. Sometimes team building exercise is done from the perspective of building trust, building collaboration with each other, and depend upon what your team needs. Remember, team engagement is much larger than team coaching.
Hmm.
Okay, and your team engagement may involve several modalities. Right? If you find that you are equipped to do facilitation for the objective that team is looking for, go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
If you find that you are not skilled and specialist in that area, find somebody who could do that for team.
Yeah.
But it is team's prerogative to figure out what is it that they would want, when, and how.
So Nitin, the question I think I am also kind of wondering was team building
Mhm.
also has some aspects which might need to be addressed. We may call it team building, but that might be necessary for
Yeah.
a team's coaching as a requirement. So how do we deal with those kind of things? Should we separate them and say, hey, this is team building, I would recommend you to do XYZ? Or do you take it off? And if you are kind of capable to also get it done for the client.
So, in my experience, Vasu, typically when you engage with the team, it's not 1 or 2 sessions. You typically engage with the longer time period. And if team building needs to be one of those exercises,
Right.
and required by the team, that becomes part of your team engagement.
Okay, got it. Clear.
Okay, so when you work with team and create a development plan for team, and there are sensing that happens, if team decides that this is one of the things that needs to be done, then that becomes part of your team engagement.
And if you feel that you are not equipped and maybe you would like somebody's intervention, you would recommend that and kind of come out of it. Correct?
You could recommend that, you could bring them in on your behalf, whichever way you would want to deal with. It's up to you as a coach.
Okay, that is clear. Thank you.
Yes, RK.
Nitin, there are instances where I came across where we might need a combination of both, right? Where there is, because just having a team coaching may not fit the purpose and may not even like a team, like when we are looking to inspire the trust, right, between the team members and empower them to take certain accountability. During those times, can we use the combination of both team coaching as well as the certain activities to build the inspire the trust, foster cultivation? You know what I mean? Can we use the combination of both, or we have to do in isolation?
No, you could use the combination of both, but you'll have to be conscious about it. And I think ICF very categorically says in their competencies that you need to know why you are doing it and what is the intention behind it, and is it the most value add to the team, right? It is a slippery slope. When you decide to take control and say, okay, I will mix and match, you'll have to ask yourself and with the team, is this the best value add for the team and their stakeholders? If this is the best value add for the team and their stakeholders, yeah, go ahead.
Perhaps when you talk through your example or case study, right, we could perhaps resonate with that in terms of how do you kind of balance it out? Yeah. Thank you.
We can do that.
So I'll just add one thing, and Nitin, I promise I'll shut up after that. So there is, from an ICF competency and even the ACTC exam point of view on this specific thing. So I'll tell you one thing from my experience. I've done so many team coaching projects now. I have not done even a single one that is purely team coaching. There is always an element of maybe training, a little bit of team building. There is, right? Now and it's great that Nitin's got the slide on, which is where it says that you have to let the team know what hat are you wearing at that time. So if you're doing training, you tell them categorically, today we are in training, we are not going to be coaching, right? So that's part of the competency piece. Also, if any of you apply for your ACTC, you will see the application itself where you have to talk about your 5 assignments that you've done. you clearly have to say, I worked on this assignment that was, let's say, a 50-hour assignment, of which X number of hours was facilitation, X number of hours was coaching, X number of hours was consulting. So, ICF also recognizes that, in team coaching, it's rare that you'll only do team coaching. Yeah, so, yeah.
So, and I would want to, bring this fact in front of everybody. Please understand the difference between the team engagement and team coaching.
Yeah.
Okay. Team engagement is larger. Team coaching is shorter. Okay. And in team engagement, you can have multiple pieces. My request is don't confuse the team engagement with team coaching. And to answer your question very categorically, RK, if you are set to do a team coaching session, don't mix it with facilitation or consultation. Stick to team coaching in those sessions.
Yeah. Got it. Thank you, Nitin.
Okay. Okay. Now there's another question for you. And there are going to be a lot of ones which are going to come. Keep them. Everybody here knows, team coaching competency, this COP is running for a while, right? Everybody knows always be contracting and so on and so forth, right? So my question is not about always be contracting. What symptoms will tell you that contracting or recontracting is needed now? How will you know that now there is a need for an agreement? Please type in chat box. And stakeholder sponsor come up with a different expectations. Okay. Contracting is needed right in the beginning. Actually, contracting is needed right through.
Yeah.
Even in the end of the team coaching session, in the closure, you would need contracting to be done for their sustenance plan. So contracting is not something that's going to stop or is only part of beginning plan.
Nitin, how do I access the other thing? I have the old sticky notes only on my screen.
No, you type in the chat box here. This is a chat box exercise.
Okay.
Yeah, so Ravi, always be contracting is fine. How would you know that contracting is needed? That's the question. Too many water cooler conversations rather than main room. Okay. When aspects of contracting is not working or team needs have changed, requiring absolutely correct. When there are new information emerging in the system. Very nicely put, Lopa. The word emerging is extremely important here, and we'll see that in the slides. Either not much communication or too many conflicting conversations. Great. So I think there's more or less there. So I'm going to share this with you. Some of the situations that I've experienced with co-coach, if you have one, obviously every session, sometimes multiple times within the session. And I've had two co-coaches who are there in this session with me. One is Rachel and another is Saras, and we have both experienced how much of this is required. When TL may feel threatened, and he feels that you are probably overtaking his authority during the session. And you'll get to know that by either his expressions or body language or the statements, right? It is extremely important to have that conversation right there in between the session itself to figure out, how do you deal with that?
So I assume, Nitin, you would take him to the corridor and kind of have a chat with him. Is that how you do
Why
it?
not do it right in front of the team and
Really?
acknowledge this is, why not do it right in front of the team and acknowledge this is something that we did not agree to? Mr. TL, how do you feel about that?
Ah, interesting.
I feel that I'm probably taking over your role here and that I shouldn't be doing that. You know, how do we want to take care of that? Do it right in front of the team. No? What is the problem? Okay. When what you have planned in the session or meeting did not work. And it will happen every time you go into the session. At least that has happened every time. A team will throw you some challenge and make you go off foot, and then you'll have to figure out how to deal with this now, right? And do recontracting with your partner, with your co-coach, with the team. Okay, this is what we planned. Looks like this is not going to go. You know, how do you want to proceed together? What's the outcome? Do that. When you feel psychological safety is impacted, and this is a big one.
So Nitin, I was wondering, good. So I'm sure you'll do this, but what's the difference between the bullet number 2 and bullet number 4?
What bullet number 2 and bullet number 4? Oh, these are two very different things. You're saying team TL may feel threatened. That is only one stakeholder. Okay, but every team member is a stakeholder there when you are doing team coaching sessions. Right? So if it's not only about TL feeling threatened, he's an important stakeholder, must be addressed. But what if the other team members are not feeling safe? Right? That also needs to be contracted right then and there. And more than this, if there's something that you're feeling in your gut which is not right, voice it out. Even if you don't know, voice it out. Use of self. Express how you are feeling and re-agree with the team. So staying connected to yourself while you are doing sessions, easier said than done. You know, I've had situations where I reflected later, oh, I should have done this. I could have taken this right to the team. And over a period of time, I was able to, but in the initial time frame, it was difficult.
So Nitin, so when you do this recontracting, right, would it be what kind of a thing? Both psychological as well as administrative thing. So how, what kind of, can you enumerate with a few examples what happened?
So for example, in the chat, there are a few things that came up when they say that a new requirement has come in, or there is a new stakeholder expectations that has come in, which require you to change your administrative contract. Right? If the scope is changing, if there's so that is the administrative contract related re-agreement that you might need to do. And if there are agreements that you have had with your teams, which I'm sure you must, in terms of how we will work together, what are the team norms, and so on and so forth. And if there is something which is not happening there, then you do that right there in the session itself. The psychologically safety related contract are not usually a administrative contract, right? So you do that in the team. And again, this is an agreement that you must have with the team. How do you want us to handle these situations? Do you want us to discuss this in team? If somebody is not feeling safe and you point them out, then he may go further down. Right? So an agreement with the team on how do you want us to handle these? Does that answer your question, Vasu?
Yeah, a few examples, Nitin. Like the last one you said, right? When you already have somebody who is feeling threatened, kind of, how would you do something like that? Just for, if you give an example, I think it will be clear.
So thank you. So one of the things that has happened is So there was a team leader in the team session, and while during discussions we saw that there was a altercation going on between the team leader and the other person, and we saw that the other person after some time complied to what team leader said, and we did not interrupt at that point in time because the heat was on. As the session continued, we expressed that there are some observations that we have made. Is this team okay to listen to? And then we shared the observation and we asked, how do you want us to handle that? And there were agreements made around it. Okay. So let us look at the case. I'm going to bring one by one. So first look at the project and the hierarchy. Okay, so before I move further, any questions? Okay.
So Nitin, so they are trying to now look for a coach consultant at 40% of the project's total time being over.
Mhm.
So this kind of brings me to a question. Typically, how soon or how late can such kind of an agreement happen? The initial agreement with the coach and the organization.
When the organization feel need to bring the coaches, that's when they will call you for it.
Right.
I
but
don't think that's in your control.
No, but from the coach's perspective, right?
Mhm.
Is that something going to be a criteria for the coach? Is that at all a factor of?
I don't think I can make a generic statement here, Vasu. I think it's going to be different. It's going to be different for different coaches. Personally, I feel there is no reason why not. If the team is willing, if the system is willing, why not? Yes, Pranav.
Hi, Nitin. Just a clarification when it says that project head is C and under him there are two leaders, and I'm referring to D. And another information about D is that D is a foreign consultant hired for his expertise.
Mhm.
Is he an employee or he's a hired consultant? Is not clear to me.
Actually, he's an employee for the time being, for as long as this project is running.
Okay, because that particular bullet makes me think that he is an external person, not an employee.
He's an employee. He's an employee, but hired from external foreign agency. Let me put it this way.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
And as soon as the project is over, he'll go back. Okay. Any other questions before I move to the next slide?
So, do we ask what is the alignment missing on? It could be not clear about the project goals or about working together as a team. What is the misalignment about?
So you will get a place to ask all of these questions, not right now. Okay. So my first question, so you have seen all of this context, right? What are you sensing about this client system? Based on the experience, based on the information that you have seen so far. What are you sensing about the client system? Please type your answers in chat. Fix the culture. Okay. Very interesting. Mr. Executive Leader feels something and says something. Okay. Mesh reporting architecture leading to confused hierarchy. Majority of new entities, new employees. Many people don't seem to be playing their roles. Too many people new, so no clarity about the role and collaboration. Okay. For project that didn't think through in advance. Okay. Fairly new team might need significant time in learning. Okay. There is a mention of external ecosystem. What involvement of that ecosystem? Okay. Shared values development may be important. Fantastic. No past experience. Says no one has delivered this kind of a project ever worldwide. Yeah. So here, let me clarify. When I said no one in the world has achieved what this committed, what this team has committed to, it's not about the domain. It's about the timeline. The challenge is with the timeline. So experience is there, but it has to be delivered in very short time. System within system coaching might be needed. Project clarity and consensus from the entire team may or may not be. It is interesting, the responses seem spread over observation and interpretation about the context. Thank you, Saras. Time deadline is a challenge. Fantastic. So the team ownership is not there regarding the timeline. No common culture, working relationship, trust issues. Okay. Developing pride in the goal and timelines. Okay. So let me ask you first question before I move to the next slide. What do you think? Which portion of this hierarchy do you think the team is? Who's the client here? And you can open up mic and talk.
Client would be Mr. C and A is the sponsor.
Okay.
I mean, Mr. C's organization will be the client.
Okay. Anybody else?
There's several internal clients, actually, starting with Mr. C, and then there are the internal clients, and because they are working for project the head is Mr. C, and then after that there is D and E. So the internal clients, I mean, for C are these people also, because it becomes a team of teams. And because there are other people also who are involved, and also the external ecosystem, which we don't really know much about right now, but that's also a client, external stakeholder, so becomes a kind of a client also.
Okay. But Mr. D and E are part of the Mr. CC.
Yes, so they are they are internal clients because they are accountable to him as per the project, or they may be called stakeholders actually, maybe not clients per se.
See, if you look at the ICF competency, Himani, ICF competency talks about saying you coach team and not individuals.
As a single entity, right? So that's what is really becoming very clear here, that actually it's a team of teams. Because there is one main team, and then there is a team also, and then there's another team. So
perfect.
So that's
another thing that you're sensing and observing from the system.
Yes. That's
okay, so I'm going to share what we sensed when we looked at this whole thing without having discussions with these guys. So Mr. A is expressing the need for this activity, not Mr. C. That's the one key thing that came to us when we looked at it. Most people are new to the system and each other. I think you guys have highlighted. And one of the things I would want to highlight, I think Saras pointed that out, that while sensing, there could be some internal interpretations you would draw from the data that you're hearing. Try and keep the interpretations separate and data separate, because your interpretations may not be true after you talk to the team and stakeholders.
So on the point of this, A is expressing the need for activity, right, Nitin? Isn't this something that happens commonly because a person who is having an activity or a immediate task at hand is seldom a person who would require an intervention. He would be trying to kind of work through it with his own resources, rather than worrying about what else can I ask for, what else can I leverage upon to help my work. Isn't that a commonly observed thing, even if it is not in the team/systems coaching environment, even if it is a one-on-one coaching?
You're right. You're right, Vasu. But I think and we will talk about this more in the upcoming slides when we talk about the whole systems coaching. You're right that typically the need is expressed by the sponsor, right? But how do you process that need? That's the difference of mindset. How do you process that need? And we will talk about in whole systems, when we talk about whole systems, how do you and what do you need to do differently? Alignment exercise is not for a team, but for a team of teams, right? I think Himani pointed out that already. And project has high external stakeholder dependency, right? These are things that we sense. So I'm going to request Rachel to create the breakout rooms. And this is the question. Okay, this is the context that you have received. And, I will request Rachel to probably create 33 people, right? So probably create about 6 rooms with 5 people or 6 people in each. And answer this. This is the context that you had. What are your next set of activities that you'll do? What do you do now after you've understood this? And I'm thinking, I think 10 minutes is good enough. So Rachel, if you could create the breakout rooms. 6 breakout rooms and give the timer of 10 minutes. Rachel, you there? Fantastic. Thanks, Rachel.
Not sure.
I think, yeah, some of the people are probably not at their desk.
Yeah. Srinivas, Veena, are you having trouble getting into the room? Ashwin? But sometimes if the internet's a little slow, also it takes a bit of
Okay.
recording.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Welcome back. Although I would love to hear what each one of the group discussed, but in the interest of time, I think I will listen to this after some time when you have done it once again. So I'll jump on to something called mindset. And we'll talk about the whole system's mindset first. Right. So one of the important aspect of mindset is a holistic view without reducing it to parts. What does it mean? What it means is not have the reductionist or analytical approach to the problem. So if you have teams like software developers, designers, testers, quality assurance, and so on and so forth, and you are facing a challenge that the design is not coming on time to the software engineers, does not necessarily mean that it's a designer's problem that needs to be fixed. Right? You still have to look at the whole system and see maybe the problem is with the interactions. A problem is with the relationships, not necessarily with the design team per se. Right? So whole system mindset is about keeping the holistic view and not going for the analytical view. One important aspect. Understand interdependencies and relationships, and not just human elements, but non-human elements as well. Obviously, in this particular case, there were obvious challenges that we saw between the human relationship itself, but there were many elements which were not human related, which were more towards what data are they exchanging across the different functions, how are they doing it, are they meeting frequently or not. It has nothing to do with the person, but the process. So when you're looking at the whole system, you look at relationships and interconnections between the humans and process. Holistically, you look at. System dynamics, we talked about the interactions. I will little bit talk about the feedback loops. So in systems thinking or whole systems theory, there are typically two kinds of feedback loops that you will see. One is the reinforcing feedback loop. What it means is that whatever is happening is feeding it back to the system so that it becomes more and more and more. Those reinforcing loops could be for the good of the organization. If you are doing process improvements and that leads to further process improvements, it will lead to good for the organization. But the reinforcing loops could be negative as well. In the terms that there is a attrition that is happening, and because there is attrition that is happening, there are new people in the system. Engagements are not happening, relationships are not getting built, and hence the attrition is happening again, right? So it's a reinforcing loop in itself. And the second kind of loops that you see in the system are the balancing loops. Balancing loops is if there is a cause if there's one condition that is happening, there is another condition which is happening to balance it and keep the system in a stable state, not going towards one end or the other. Keep the system in the stable state. I think the last thing that I will talk about is acknowledging the system properties behaviors that are not attributed to the individual element. Right, but instead emerge as a result of dynamics. And I want to acknowledge somebody posted in the chat when they were talking about see what is emerging from the system. So there is no direct contribution. You can't pinpoint what is happening because of what, but it is happening because of the dynamics. I think that's the whole system mindset that needs to be there when you are working with the whole system. And that's kind of extremely important. Enabling the system to see itself as it is, without any external interpretations, opinions, or judgments. So when you are working, in this case, when you are working with the teams or individuals, how would you enable this system to hear itself instead of you hearing the system and giving it back to the system? How do you enable system to hear itself, without any interpretations? Any questions before I move on to the next slide? And there are only 2-3 slides again. Then we'll go back to activity. Okay. So what is this whole system support? Bring the whole systems together as large as possible in quantity. And when I'm saying as large as possible, I'm talking about teams like 8 people, 10 people, 20 people, 30 people, or possibly the whole organization is like 2,000 people. And when you bring the whole systems approach is bringing everybody together. And at times it is possible, at times it is not possible. So one of the case study of this system is development of Boeing 777. The whole systems approach was applied there, and research says that the overall development time of the Boeing 777 reduced to 1/5, and they were able to deliver in 1/5 of the time because the whole system was listening to each other. Okay, and when it is not possible, ensure that there is a microcosm of the whole system. Right, now what the microcosm means? Microcosm means that every part of the system is represented in the activity that you're doing, in the work that you're doing with the system. In this particular case, when those 28, 30 people came in, we deliberately created the microcosm within the workshop to ensure everybody hears the whole systems and listen to the system themselves. So if bring in as large as possible, or at least create a microcosm of the system. Enable the system to listen, see, and express. And that is where the coach is sitting in the sides. He's not in between. He's sitting in the sides and allowing the system to see, listen, and express themselves by looking at it. Enabled to use people themselves as an instrument of the system, which means, for the lack of better example, think of, I'm sure everybody is aware of the empty chair exercise, right? So you bring in people, have them sit in the chair, and that chair is a system. So the person is not now anymore speaking as me, but he is speaking as a system. And the questions you could ask is, what as a system you would want to express? What as a system are you feeling right now? What as a system are you seeing as challenge? The question is as a system and not to a person. Okay. and explore the static and dynamic aspect of the system. So typically, when you do psychometric, they will give you the static state of the system. Everybody will respond to the questions as in at that point in time, right? And it will be difficult to get the dynamic aspects of the system. Even in interviews, you will typically see the static aspect of the system. When you interact with the stakeholder will talk in point in time in reference, right? In order to look at the dynamic aspect of the system, one has to be involved in the system. For example, sitting in the business as usual meeting with one of the stakeholders in the system as a mute, and see what is happening. What is the dynamicity in the system that is happening? Or be part of the coffee table conversations. Mute, see what is happening. Right? So when you think of whole systems approach, you are bringing the system together. Okay. And then I'm going to introduce one last term, which is voice of the system. And this question popped up before I wanted it to. So ignore this question right now. So voice of system is basically the collective perspectives, beliefs, mental models, values, and patterns, right? Every voice within the system reflects a systemic mindset. So so typically what happens is that when you're working with team, there is people who are silent and there are people who are vocal. There are people who are yes-sayers and there are people who are naysayers, right? And when you talk to the team, you would get that input, from the members, and you will be able to identify people. Just because there's a personality attached to an individual does not mean that it is not a systemic mindset. Every person, whatever they're saying, without any prejudice, reflects a mindset which is there in the system. So it is extremely important to bring all of that together when you are looking at the voice of system. Everyone's truth is a truth. And I'm sure you would have seen the image where you have 3 axes and there's a cylinder, and on one axis you can see circle, another you can see square, and another you can see rectangle, right? But it actually is cylinder. So everyone's truth is a truth, and collect as many of them. If you want to build a systemic perspective, it is important to build as many truths as possible and bring it back to the client. Providing a voice to the system, right? So just like I talked about in the previous exercise, in the previous slide, the empty chair. There needs to be a place where system is able to voice itself to the people. Okay, so enough me talking. What do you think is the role of coach here?
Providing a voice to the system and paraphrasing it and putting it out again for the team to decide what to do with it.
So what you're saying is that coach is expected to collect the information and present it back to the system.
Yeah.
Summarizing it.
And if there is a hypothesis that the coach has, he may offer it with a different hat.
You mean he can share that as his opinion about the system?
Yes.
Okay. How do you think that would have an impact on system?
So he's not sharing it directly as a coach. Yeah, so I said he has to change his hats and offer to share it as a hypothesis. And
it doesn't matter. You are part of the system. It doesn't matter how you share it, whether you call yourself coach, consultant, whatever you call yourself. It doesn't matter. The moment you express your opinion, how do you think it will impact system?
I think it can affect in multiple ways. It can cause a ripple, and revolutions are always either they cause a discomfort. Discomforts are usually uncomfortable, as we know them to be, but they may challenge the status quo. They may challenge some things and may cause a ripple. As long, it depends also how it is put across. I mean, I know what you're saying, but without, shaking the river, I mean, without taking the water, we can't expect something to just shake it in itself.
I hear you, Himani. Only word of caution
Yeah.
is that when you are expressing your opinion, is it coming from the belief that if you present the data as it is to the team, they will not be able to create the same opinion about themselves? Is that the belief that you have? That's why you are expressing your opinion.
No.
Why don't you allow the team to create whatever opinion that you have created themselves?
Certainly, and that would be the idea. So they can brainstorm it definitely amongst themselves. And I wouldn't be in a hurry to present it just because I've got it and they haven't.
Yeah, I'm saying this is the trap as coaches we get into.
I know.
Be caution about it.
Sure, I hear you.
Okay.
Yes.
Anybody else? What's the role of a coach here?
There are some good ones in chat, Nitin.
Oh, I'm not able to see that. Can somebody?
Hang on, I'll read it out to you. So Dharmesh says the answer is in the last point, be the voice of the system. I don't know how you feel about that, Nitin. Be the voice of the system.
What do you mean? Be the voice of the system, as in you speak on behalf of system? Is that what he's saying?
I don't know. Dharmesh will be there.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, yes. I mean, by paraphrasing, saying that what is the system saying? So not be the voice in that sense, while we allow the voice of the system to express itself, if there are certain things as a coach that we are seeing when we are looking at all of these from a holistic viewpoint, we need to also express what we are seeing.
I agree, we do. But we'll have to allow system to first figure out. If system is not able to figure out, and I doubt in many cases I've seen, I have been challenged with that assumption. Whenever I presented data back to system, they are able to figure out much more than I could. But if they are not able to figure out, so I'm saying be cautious about, is there a belief that system will not be able to figure out themselves?
No, all I'm saying, Nitin, out here is that as a coach, when you enter this, you are also part of the system in some sense.
Yeah. So the only word comes to my mind is detached attachment.
Yeah.
Is it fair to say, Nitin, that role of a coach is to bring that whole systems approach that you talked about, right? Bringing everybody and giving the platform and enabling them to see and value and seen and heard. Is that the first starting point?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I gave the answer here. You see the third bullet.
Enabling the system to
The
design.
role of a coach is to ensure that there is a microcosm. Ensure that they have a platform to listen, see, and express. That's the role of a coach.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I'm going to read the others out as well. I think some of them are like really spot on. Rajeshwari says to allow the voice of the system to emerge. I think that's
absolutely. Absolutely.
Enable to ensure that all voices in the system are heard. Yeah.
Perfect.
And
Perfect.
Ajit says coach can also play a role in discovering or unearthing what was unknown so far.
By enabling system, if that's what he means, yes.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. By facilitating the discussion, by bringing people together, asking questions, stuff like that, right?
Yeah. Owning the process, not the outcome, not the data.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, I like to see that, Ajit, to your point, I like to see that as creating the space, and what has to emerge will emerge.
Right. Providing that safe space, etc. Yeah.
Binita says facilitating outcomes desired. I'm not very sure of what that means. Do you want to?
Binita, do you want to express?
So what I meant was that when there are a lot of people talking divergent point of views, when a coach can take a facilitative approach and say that, okay, this is the direction. So they provide the direction. The outcome here is pretty much clear. So we help focus. So there the voices, the whole focus automatically happens. Facilitative approach. जो आपने बोला कि we don't have to tell them what to do. They will automatically come. If we provide the outcome, then automatically the voices will filter down to what it is, which should be
Absolutely.
kind of.
Absolutely. I think the only addition that I would do, Vinita, is that you can choose whichever is the best in the moment. You can either choose the facilitative role and say, okay, guys, this is what is happening, this is the process that we can follow to converge and so on and so forth. Or you could, depending upon what the situation is, or you could take a coach role and say, you know, here is what I'm observing, that there are many divergent opinions are coming in. How do you want to deal with that? And let the team decide how they want to deal with that. That's another approach that you could take.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other, Rachel?
Yeah, so make the voices of the system coherent, interpret, put it all back together and give feedback and make observations. Yeah.
Okay, I'm not going to respond to that. I think we have had enough discussion around it.
Michael says coach can synthesize the information and present it back to the system, which is also a little similar.
Yeah, so synthesizing means that you are putting together and making 2 and 2 plus 4. Right. My request is let that responsibility lie with the system.
And honestly, that's the hardest part of team coaching.
That's the hardest part of team
and not
coaching.
putting judgments on what you're seeing. Yeah. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it. Then people logging off and stuff. So I think we can move on with it.
Okay. So RK wants to say something. RK?
No, I'm just wondering, you put it nice way. What is the role of the coach? But why do we even need a coach? What was the need of a coach to begin with? They could have hired somebody external. Anyways, they've hired an external consultant in doing that. But what differentiate in their mind, right? In the Mr. A's mind, what was the need of to hire a coach when you could have been an external consultant or facilitator to go and get things done? So that's what I'm trying to figure it out.
I guess, and it's a very good question, which we did not ask. But my guess, if I were to make, is that he probably saw that team was too busy in doing their day-to-day stuff and did not have the time to set out. And he thought somebody who can ask the right questions would be helpful.
Okay. So because for me, that was important, right, Nathan? Because the coaching plays a critical role here, because we always have to look at from the minds of the buyer standpoint, why they even choose, how they differentiate coach from a consultant.
I agree.
They could have hired some consultant, right? For me, that was good. So we can tap in these kind of needs. Thank you.
Okay. So, Saras, you wanted to add something?
Just wanted to add a small bit, and that is, if you were to forget about this context and say, why do you need a coach at all? I think the point is sustainability. If I were to say it in one word, the point is sustainability. While you may bring in process, while you may bring in goals, purpose, what is the strategic objective, and so on and so forth, clarify the roles. What you do on a daily basis and what you need to change in working with each other on a daily basis is what coaching helps you do. And therefore, sustainability in a whole systems approach is about taking it to the last mile, which is about making sure those behavioral changes are also taking place.
Okay, so in the interest of time, I will very quickly move to the next slide. And because this is information, I'll just let it be there and let you guys read. So we did many activities to collect the voice of system for this team. And when we presented it back, and in this case, we did to start with. But then we allowed the system to hear itself when we created the microcosm in the workshop for this team. But these were the very clear benefits we could see, from the voice of the system. Okay, I'm going to ask that question now. For this case, if you were to take whole systems approach, what would you do now? and I'm going to stop share. I would want to listen. Earlier, it was a breakout room exercise, but since we are short of time, I would allow people to open the mic and talk. Yes, Himani.
When we discussed this the first time around, we had actually spoken this to each other, that have we checked that what is A's perception about this team and the team of teams? Is it actually true also? Because he's seeing it, but the people who are actually on the job, which is C, D, and E, they haven't even spoken up and they don't even seem to say anything about the problem yet. So we talked about discovery sessions, and we talked about first speaking to these people, and then even then coming together and saying that actually what is the elephant? Is there any problem, or is there an issue or something? Is it there also? It's just because he's so think about time and or whatever other things maybe in his this thing. It's just something that he fancies and wants to just get in somebody. That was a part of our.
So if you were to take the whole system separate and enable the system to hear, listen, and express, what would you do?
Then I would say that it is something that is coming out of the system's, understanding of what is actually coming out, that this is the need of the hour. And then, as a coach, I would probably go deeper into the discussions whether it is in the, team, whether it's the team norms that need to be kind of redefined, or the ways of working need to be everyday team, this thing is there, or the communication between probably one department to another is there, or maybe even as simple as that what is going to A and filtering down to D or E is, are we speaking the same language, in terms of even timelines? What is timeline? Timeline for A might be 0 hours, and timeline for me might be that this much time means, okay, this much time, So are we speaking the same language at the end of the day? So that's all there is to it, and that the team will decide for itself. That they're simply ways of working for me.
So how long was the assignment, Nitin?
Actually spanned around 10 weeks.
Okay.
For first 6 weeks, we continued to collect the voice of system. Then we did workshop with them, and then they did follow up. Actually, we spent more than that now to think of it.
And within 10 weeks, by when after your assignment completed, by when the project need to be delivered, how much gap or how much time these were having?
I don't want to become too specific, because that will break the anonymity. But considering that they had 40% of time, and we were working with them for about 10 to 12 weeks time frame, I would say they probably are left with 50% time, I guess.
50%, another 3-4. Okay, got it. So is it getting one-on-one meetings with all the 28 to 30 leaders? I can imagine within the time frame it's very challenging. So
but why would you do one-on-one meeting, right? If you want systems to express,
yeah.
So why would you do one-on-one meeting?
Agreed. I mean, that's where I wanted to see what kind of approach you do. You bring everybody together, the whole system do it, or first you had one-on-one interactions, then bring whole do it.
I don't want to straight away give the answer and look for answers here before I give away.
Okay, so I'm just going to step in because we're almost 3 minutes over the hour. I know the conversation's interesting. So if any of you would like to stay back and continue with the conversation, and assuming Nitin's okay with that, we can continue to do that. But in case anybody else wants to log off, please do that if you would like to. But before we do that, just want to share a couple of, admin things. Number one, the recording for this session will go up on the YouTube channel in maybe a couple of days. And for those of you who are eligible, you will get your CCU certificates in your email on the same email address that you signed up for. Right. So thank you. If anybody wants to leave, thank you for joining. And of course, if anybody wants to stay back and continue with the conversation, please do.